Hi, I am Patrick Dwyer. I am an autistic graduate student at UC Davis. I also do some autism research here, and I facilitate a peer support group for other autistic students. And right now, as you can see, I am standing outside the Student Housing Administration building. In a few moments, we'll be going inside to have a conversation with the people at Student Housing Administration because, student housing is important if that's where you're going to be living. You don't have to live there if you don't want to. I was just living at home, which actually worked pretty well for me because there was a university in my hometown for my undergraduate studies, and so I was able to focus on transitioning to the academic aspects of the university and adjusting to those. And then only after I was already used to the university, only then did I come and actually start living on my own. If there is a local community college or university in your hometown, you might want to think about attending that instead, like I did. I think it's really important that if you're going to be living in a space for a year, that you know what you're getting into, that you do what you can to make sure that you have the best experience possible there. So in a few moments, we'll go inside to talk about just how we're going to do that. Hi, so I am here with Samira, who is the case manager for medical accommodations at the Student Housing Administration Office at UC Davis. Samira, thanks so much for making the time to talk to us. We really appreciate it.
Happy to be here.
As students are thinking about living in residence and going into the university, and they're wanting to explore what the residence environment is like, get some familiarity with it, see if it's something that they want to do for themselves, how would they go about getting that familiarity?
The school website is a good place to start. It'll have a lot of information about when tours are available, and if someone can't find the information that they're looking for, talking to the housing office, either picking up the phone and calling or sending an email would be a good place to start.
So what if somebody wanted a more private, less overwhelming tour? How do you suppose they would go about that? Is that an option?
Some schools have options for that. Someone in the housing office can help them and tell them maybe when there would be a smaller tour available, or sometimes, depending on time allowance, someone can make an appointment with the student and their family and show them around the residential area that they're interested in.
How would you suggest people would proceed if they think they'll need a single room?
Different housing offices have different options as far as room residency. Mm-hmm. So someone from the housing office can tell a student what sorts of options are available. And if we're talking about a medically needed accommodation, then the student housing office or the student disability center can work with the student and sometimes their medical team to give them whatever they think that they can for a reasonable accommodation.
If it is a process of accommodation, are students going to have to obtain some kind of report or documentation or something to prove that it's something that they're eligible for, as it were? How would that work?
It really depends on the type of accommodation. It's a case-by-case basis. If a student has a question about that, then the university will be able to direct them to the process.
What about if somebody is they are already in a room with a roommate, and then that's when they run into some difficulty or some conflicts? Mm-hmm. How would they navigate that if the semester or the quarter has already started?
Housing professionals are trained to deal with roommate conflicts. Okay. So if there's ever a concern, please reach out and talk to somebody and they'd be able to help.
What about if somebody needs a quieter sort of space? What if, it's an autistic person with sensory sensitivities? Mm-hmm. How would they go about trying to secure that quieter environment?
Well, realistically, college campuses aren't the quietest of places.
This is true, I suppose, yes.
Different campuses have different ways of addressing that need. Mm-hmm. Here at UC Davis, for example, we have some floors in residence halls which are quiet floors, which essentially means that students are expected to keep it down between certain hours.
And then, overall, as students are navigating all of this, when should they be doing things, right? When should they be thinking about applying for housing? And then if there is a need for some kind of accommodation, when should they bring that up?
Typically, housing applications open different times. Usually it's right after the student is given admission to the school. Okay. Now, when the housing application opens, I really suggest that students go in and apply as soon as possible and make sure that they hit all of the deadlines. Mm-hmm. And that prevents any delays to their accommodations.
Okay. So doing things nice and early is a good idea. That makes some sense. And then should students be approaching student housing with any accommodation requests or anything at that point, or?
Yes, as soon as possible, ideally.
Well, that's all of my sort of official questions for you. So if you have any concluding bits of wisdom or thoughts from your experiences?
Just that students should never be afraid to advocate for themselves, and if they feel uncomfortable doing so, to elect the help of family or professionals, because as soon as the university knows that you need help, they will be there to help you.
Sounds like good general advice. Self-advocacy is really essential, isn't it?
It is.
Okay, well, thank you again for your time.
Absolutely happy to be here.